Hello and welcome. You have tuned in to the Foreign Film Frequency, a podcast about what English speakers tend to call foreign language films or international films, and what the rest of the world simply call films. My name is Nikolai, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host Nicolas, and together we travel the world through cinema with the goal of watching a movie from every country in the world and bring you, the listener, our thoughts along the way. For each episode, we pick one movie to watch, discuss, and rate, and before we end, we'll let you know what movies we'll be watching next so that you, the listener, can join us in this journey from home. Now sit back, relax, and cue the subtitles. Nikolai, how well do you know Mozart?
Mozart.
A little bit. You look like a deer in headlights at this question.
I was... Well, this is a testament to this not being scripted.
Exactly.
I was not ready for it. I know a little bit about Mozart and like some of his music.
All right, I won't torture you anymore. Strangely enough, this movie is connected to Mozart. But what did we watch today?
Today's movie is the 2006 drama film Daratt, or Dry Season, from Chad. So the obvious Mozart connection is set in stone. Written and directed by Mahamat-Saleh Haroun and made with a budget of 1.5 million euros. It premiered on September 1st, 2006 at the Venice Film Festival, where it won the Golden Lion, the Special Jury Prize, the UNESCO Award, and several other prizes. It later went on to win a number of other awards at other festivals. It currently has an IMDb score of 6.9 with 1,100 ratings, a score of 3.6 on Letterboxd, and on Rotten Tomatoes it has 100% on the tomato meter and 77% on the popcorn meter. We will see if we agree.
And as always, we also look at 3 other more mainstream movies that came out the same months as the movie you watched. So please tell us what Hollywood had to offer in September of 2006.
September 06 is the Wicker Man, starring Nicolas Cage in a very memed about movie.
Yeah.
We also have the historical drama Last King of Scotland with Forrest Whitaker as the Ugandan dictator Idi Amin. And the highest grossing movie of that month is Jackass #2. Have you seen any of these films?
Yes, I've seen all of them.
All of them?
All of them.
All right.
Yeah, I've seen all of them. I've seen The Wicker Man, both this one and the original British one, which is a million times better. I've seen The Last King of Scotland a few times. It's a really cool movie. And I've seen Jackass #2. Like I've seen pretty much, I think, all the Jackass movies, just because he was such a big part of growing up.
Yeah. And did you replicate any of the stunts?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One year I got a video camera for Christmas, and what is the first thing you do when you don't know how to write a script or anything? You just go and do stupid shit.
Record it.
So, yeah, there's a very compromising video somewhere on my parents' computer, probably.
That could sound wrong.
Exactly. What about you? Have you watched any of them?
Yeah, I've watched the last 2. I haven't actually watched.
You haven't watched The Wicker Man,
but it feels like I have. Because I've seen the compilations.
You've seen it in memes.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm fairly sure that the best parts of the movie are memed.
The bees.
Yeah. My eyes, not my eyes. But I am a huge fan of Nick Cage in general.
Great.
Yeah, he's the best. Have you seen? I watched it. Not a few weeks ago, perhaps. Mm-hmm. He made the autobiographical film. I think it's called The Unbearable Weight of Extraordinary Talent.
No, I haven't seen that one.
It was hilarious.
Oh, okay.
He's playing Nick Cage, a struggling action star who can't get a part, and he's constantly confronted by his younger self. Who wants him to make blockbuster movies, but he really sees himself as a serious actor, and then it kind of goes from there. But it's that role summed up what I think about him. I think he likes to spend money. I think he's a really good actor,
when he wants to be, and when he's in good material.
Yeah. But he's in all material. I think that's his main issue.
He does not know how to say no to a role.
But he has an expensive lifestyle, so he needs to.
Have you seen one of the earliest really weird ones? The one where he thinks he's a vampire.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Yeah,
I can't remember what the name of it, but yeah, it's wild.
It is, and he also starred in one of my favorite films with him is actually David Lynch movie, I think, starring Willem Dafoe and Nick Cage, called Wild at Heart. That's an amazing. I mean, he's amazing in it, and the film is amazing. And Willem Dafoe is crazy as always. Face Off.
That's an awesome movie. I love Face Off.
So overacted.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Anyway, would you watch any of these movies rather than the movie we watched today?
Yes.
Yes. Which one?
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially for a second viewing. Yeah.
Yeah. I won't spoil too much our ratings, but I think for both of us, what we just talked about before, it's probably a one-time watch. Not terrible, but I probably would watch any of these ones again, rather than watch this one again.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of glad that I've seen this one, just because it is interesting to see a movie from Chad, which is just a country that I think we think very little of.
Yeah.
Like, not think little of in a degrading way, but we just don't think about them a lot.
Definitely.
So let's start by reading the extremely long IMDb logline. It reads, Chad, 2006. After a 40-year civil war, the radio announces the government has just amnestied the war criminals. Outraged by the news, Guma Abacha orders his grandson Atim, a 16-year-old youth, to trace the man who killed his father and execute him. Atim obeys him, and armed with his father's own gun, he goes in search of Nasara, the man who made him an orphan. It does not take long before he finds him. Nasara, who now goes straight, is married, goes to the mosque, and owns a small bakery. After some hesitation, Atim offers him his services as an apprentice. He is hired, then it will be easy for him to gun down the murderer of his father. At least, that is what he thinks. Now, does this sum up the movie?
Completely.
By
far the best summary we've
Should we just end it here?
Yeah.
What's the rating?
That's the film.
Well, yeah, basically. We'll go into it a little bit more, but let's just briefly go into the background. So, Mahamat-Saleh Haroun was born in Abidjan in Chad in 1961, but fled the country to France in the 1980s, where he ended up studying film at the Conservatoire Libre du Cinéma in Paris. He later also studied journalism and worked as a journalist while directing several short films. In 1999, he released his first feature film called Bye Bye Africa, which he wrote, directed, and starred in. It's sort of a docudrama which tells the story of a Chadian movie director who returns to his home country, which sounds pretty personal. It received a jury mention at the Venice Film Festival, and it is also regarded as the first Chadian movie, and Haroun is generally considered to be sort of the first Chadian filmmaker to direct a full feature-length film. So far, he's made 8 movies, with another one being in post-production as of recording. And now the movie for today, Daratt, or Dry Season, is the third feature-length film, and probably his best known. Now, originally, the film was commissioned by American theater director Peter Sellers' new Crowned Hope Festival to commemorate the 250th birthday of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, held in Vienna. Now, for this festival, a total of 6 feature films inspired by Mozart's works were made, the others being Opera Java from Indonesia, Paraguayan Hammock from Paraguay, I Don't Want to Sleep Alone from Malaysia and Taiwan, Syndromes and a Century from Thailand, and the Kurdish movie Half Moon, as well as the South African short film called Mortu and The Stick Fighter. Now, for his movie Dry Season, Haroun found inspiration for the themes of revenge and reconciliation in Mozart's La Clemenza di Tito. I don't know anything enough about the work, but as I understand it from just reading up on it, it's set in ancient Rome and is a story of revenge. But I thought it was an interesting concept to sort of take something classical music and then get different directors from across the world to make these movies. And I don't know about you, but I haven't actually seen any of these other ones.
No, me neither. It's actually the first time I hear of this concept. I haven't stumbled upon it.
So the thing was held in 2006, but I thought it was very interesting because it was really hard today to actually find the names of all these movies. It's not like there was just a Wikipedia page for this or anything. It took a little bit of digging, but I thought it was an interesting concept, and hence the the intro question for you came out of nowhere.
But yeah, it's I guess if La Clemenza di Tito is a classical revenge story, then I can see how it's tied together. But there's, I mean, yeah, my knowledge is perhaps too limited to make any point here, but I didn't see much of Mozart, not in Not in the music, not in the themes, not in, everything that I could have comprehended.
No, I mean, this is, of course, an opera, so there is like a story, a plot line. How well it corresponds to this movie, I don't know. From what I could read, it's just a summary of, Act 1 and Act 2 of this opera. It seems it is just the overall themes. It's not like it is this opera played out in Chad.
That would have been amazing.
That would have been amazing. But it isn't like that. It is just the themes that is inspired by. Yeah. And I think from what I could understand, it is the same for the other movies as well, that they sort of take some themes that are touched upon in these operas, in Mozart's work, and then translate it into a fictional feature film.
Makes sense. And just so you know, for the afterthoughts article on our new webpage, foreignfilmpod.com, I'm not gonna watch or listen to the opera. So I will. If you do, please send me some notes, because I cannot get through opera to save my life.
You're not a fan?
No.
I have to admit, I am not a big fan of opera either.
Now that we've filtered away our most cultured listeners, let's dig into the movie itself. If you haven't watched it and don't want any spoilers, this is where you might want to pause the episode, find the film, watch it, and come back. Consider yourself warned.
So the movie starts in a small, dry, very, very dry village in Chad. And the village is waiting for the president of the Commission for Truth and Justice to make an announcement. And the radio announces an armistice for all war criminals and an end to a long period of violence. And we see a young man, we later learn is Artem, walks out on the street. And there's a bunch of shoes lying on the ground. What do you think the significance of these shoes might be? I have thoughts, but interesting.
Yeah, I think that it symbolizes the ones that did not survive the conflict. I mean, it's obvious that they're not happy with this news.
The reaction is not exactly positive, right?
Yeah, so I'm thinking that they hear there's an armistice and a general amnesty for these rebels, and are instantly reminded that.
Yeah, sort of the people that have gone, right? That are not here as a result of this war that is now over, and now we're just supposed to sort of move on, right? That is sort of the message that is there. Now it's over, it's done with, and we can all move on. But it's sort of like the reminder that there are people missing after a war, and you can't just always just say, "All right, let's move on."
Yeah, and that's something Africa as a whole has struggled with in post-colonial times, and in their independence and post-colonial times.
And I think in general in civil wars. I mean, last time we talked about West Beirut. I mean, a civil war, that these leave long wounds that don't actually heal as fast as sometimes we sort of hope they will, or maybe act like they should.
Yeah, and I mean, in particular in Africa, they've had their fair share of conflicts and civil wars and so on. And there have been many attempts in Africa to, kind of following the same model, but with key differences and with very varying success, right? So South Africa is one place where, general amnesty was given in return for confessions. Rwanda had the genocide, and they had a different approach to that. And I actually didn't know that Chad had this generalized form of amnesty.
I will say I was not able to find neither the real background, because first of all, when I looked up, trying to look into the background of this, I tried to look up, okay, what is, the history of Chad and their wars, and I can see a long list of wars, but I cannot find anything that supposedly ended in 2006 or around that time, but it doesn't seem, because they have cell phones and stuff, so I'm a little confused about if this actually has any basis in reality, what kind of wars it is. I was not able to find, as the log line, for example, says, after 40 years of violence, and
I managed to find some things out about it. I'm pretty sure that this is in 2006, because in around that time I'm not going to act like an expert on Chadian history and all of the groups and factions and stuff like that, but there was generalized amnesty offered to encourage disarmament and peace. But what I figured out later was that it was applied not universally, and it had very varying success where, it did kind of dimmer down the conflicts for a period, but then as it is with these things, when it's not properly settled, they just need a small spark to reignite. So I don't think anything stopped, but there was perhaps a pause in the hostilities.
Yeah, I wasn't able to. I'm glad you might have found something. But anyway, back to the story. After the announcement, Artem goes to his grandfather, who is blind, we learn, and the grandfather gives Artem a pistol that belonged to his father to go and kill Nasara, who is the man who supposedly killed Artem's father and the grandfather's son.
Yeah.
And Artem sets off and catches a ride with a sort of a jeep bus. And while he's on this bus, he sits in front of a soldier. And he's looking at the soldier, staring him down, resulting in the soldier pulling out his pistol and pointing at him. I'm interested to hear what you thought of that scene.
For one thing, it shows that peace is not here.
Yeah, exactly.
and that everyone is still very much on edge. And I also think it gives this, I don't know if it's a stereotypical, but this image of African militias or military or paramilitary or whatever it is as being very ruthless and disorderly.
Yeah, I think it's also a way to say that violence has sort of become a part of society, right? And it's also very clearly established that Artem has a very negative opinion of military men and the military in general. He makes it to N'Djamena and takes a piss and is then beaten by the police. But he's saved by Musa, who offers him to stay at his place. And, maybe just say the story is quite simple. I think all of it it's quite linear storytelling. There isn't any real flashbacks to what has happened before. We are told this story pretty much as it happens. One of the things that I kind of liked about it is to see this country, because it is very dry, hence the name Dry Season. But it's crazy because they are in the capital city, and it is dirt roads,
earth houses,
earth houses, some kind. It is quite interesting to see a part of the world that we don't really see a lot. So after Artem stays at Musa's place, he goes out. And I think it's quite easy for him in a way to find this man, Nasara, who is now working as a baker. Artem goes to his place and he sees him standing outside his bakery and giving the driest-looking baguettes imaginable to a bunch of children outside. He sort of goes up and gets the bread, and then he bites it and spits it out and throws it on the ground in a way of taunting this man. I don't know. It's in a way, it feels a little strange throughout this movie. And I think that this is perhaps the biggest weak point for me. Is it's never really explained why he doesn't just shoot him. He has him. They seem to be relatively alone on the street. He has the gun in his pocket. A lot of what happens now, because over a few interactions with this man, he becomes his apprentice. Yeah, it's sort of a strange way that it happens. It just sort of happens that he keeps showing up, and then Nasara invites him inside. It should be said he has sort of a voice box, like something happened to him. I think his throat was cut, right? During the war, and now he uses like a voice box, like maybe heavy smokers use, or people with throat cancer, something like that.
Yeah, and it is not explained at all.
No,
why he just... I mean, for one, it would be a very short film. And number two might be because he might want to get to know his... I mean, that might be one of the themes the film is revolving around, is this thing about reconciliation being you need understanding and you need to know the other side if there is to be a chance of any lasting peace. And it might just be that he's sizing up his father's killer and trying to figure out who he is, getting to know him. Yeah.
But after all, he does start to sort of work for him. And without just... I mean, this man seems like a man who was once something big when there was an army, and now he's sort of he seems like he's a good enough baker, but he also seems like he's struggling. There's another baker who comes right outside his door with a truck and sells bread and seems to be doing better. He has a young wife who he also doesn't treat very well, who's also pregnant, and who Artem kind of has an attraction to. It seems that they are very much more attracted to, like she's more attracted to Artem than she is to her husband. But I think, honestly, there isn't a lot else in this movie going on in terms of the narrative, because what you have now is just a lot of time when he is working, Artem is working for Nasara, and trying to learn how to become a baker.
Nasara...
And
Nasara
sort of takes on a first a sort of a role as a master, teaching him how to be, giving him an apprenticeship, and then later on almost like a father figure.
He even says,
yeah, he asks him to become, his son. Yeah. Just to sum up, because there's a lot of scenes, and then, you think that Nasara is sort of, now they can be friends, and then Atim retreats, and then he grabs him, and then retreats. And there's sort of like a weird power play here. I think the movie is trying to convey that Atim has sort of an inner struggle, whether he should go through with this killing or assassination of Nasara, or he should not do it. I think the biggest weak point is that I don't perhaps personally see why... I don't know how to phrase this, but how or why he should even forgive him in a way, if that makes any sense. I mean, he does take him in and give him a job, but...
Yeah, but I think that's the film. No, but it is because Atim doesn't have his father.
No,
but he needs a father figure. That much is very apparent. I mean, he's still wet behind the ears.
Yeah.
There's the scene where the soldier he gets angry at the soldier at the bar, the drunk soldier. He follows him and wants to kill him, but can't pull the trigger. Yeah. There's a lot of internal dialogue being played out without
that we don't see.
Yeah, that we don't see. And then, Nasara does offer him a home away from home. He is attracted to this woman who takes good care of him and is showing affection to him. And in a way, I think he enjoys being a baker.
Yeah, I think maybe you're right. He does find his place in life in a way.
It's an opportunity to get out of the village he's from and, the big city.
Learn a trade.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is very fundamental to surviving in this society.
Yeah.
The thing I struggle with here is how many times it seems like a schedule. Like, so, as you said, he's angry, then he learns something from him, becomes entangled with Nasara. Then Nasara wants to make a bond with him, then he gets angry and pushes him away. Yeah. That's very much all of his...
It's a cycle that goes again and again. And it
just becomes...
And it becomes a little too much.
Yeah.
Because perhaps I feel that it isn't really explained enough, like his inner... motives is this one is very much showing, not telling what is going on, but at the same time not to step on the movie too much, because I know most of these are not really professional actors, but perhaps it needed a stronger cast to really convey it for me, because it does seem a bit stilted at times. He sort of just follows along and then very suddenly he just lashes out and anyway. Finally, he decides that he wants to kill him. He goes to a bridge. He sort of psychs himself up to go and kill him. And when he finally goes, it turns out that Nasara and his wife returns from the hospital. And Aisha, as she's called, has lost the baby. He abandons his idea of killing him, at least for now. And Nasara goes out drinking. I mean, he's a Muslim, so of course, and says, "Oh, God has abandoned me," and everything. But then he also asks Atim, I see that you hate me. I see your hatred towards me, but don't you love me just a little bit? And he returns to this idea of becoming his father, but he needs his father's permission. So he starts pushing for them to go to Atim's home and find his father and ask for, his permission to have Nasara adopt Atim. Atim is reluctant to do it, but then Aisha says, "Please do it for me."
And he seems to generally like her.
He seems to generally like her. I think it's a way to say we can maybe be together in this way. I don't know. Yeah. It's a little strange, but yeah, she says, "Please do it for me." Atim finally agrees that they should go to his village, and they set off to Atim's home. And when they get there, they meet the grandfather, sort of in the desert, the blind grandfather.
Where it's also dry.
It's also extremely dry. Everything is dry in this movie. Anyway, the grandfather tells Nasara who he is, and he tells him to undress. Atim pulls out the gun and sort of forces Nasara to undress, and Nasara realizes that it's a setup. And the grandfather tells Atim to kill Nasara, but Atim, instead of shooting him, points the gun into the air, shoots, and fakes Nasara's death for the grandfather. And we see Atim and the grandfather walk off, and that's the end of the movie. As we said, it's not a movie where a lot happens. I mean, there is a lot of these cycles of them getting closer, then pushing away, push and shove, push and shove. What do you think of the way it ended?
I quite like the ending. I think the overall points and messages of the film are actually quite nice.
Yeah.
I like what it's trying to do. I like the fact that he's trying to establish that there's more to this life than vengeance, and that even your worst enemy can help you and offer you something you need. All of that is great. It's just too long, it's too repetitive, and the acting is not good enough for
a movie with actually very little dialogue.
With very little dialogue. I mean, a lot of it needs to be carried through their stares and, their inner dialogue being acted out. And there's just not... there's just not the bandwidth for that.
What do you think of the fact that he goes off with the grandfather? He doesn't go with Nasara in the end.
I think, I hadn't actually thought about that. I think it's obvious that he won't go with Nasara because one thing is forgiveness, and I think he forgives him ultimately by not killing him. That's
but not forgetting in a way.
But not forgetting, and definitely not for replacing the father that Nasara killed with Nasara himself.
Yeah, I think Nasara is also, he doesn't know up until this point. He has not found out who he is. So it is at that moment. I also think the killing of Nasara, or the non-killing of Nasara, but acting out like you killed it, is because he knows that he needs to do it for his grandfather because his grandfather needs this closure, right? He is the man who needs the revenge for his son being killed. Yeah,
it's a very effective trick that he's blind, because in the grandfather's perception, he has his revenge, even though Nasara lives. So there's that thing about it where you don't necessarily have to kill someone. You can kind of agree that it's done. I think that's a point he's trying to make.
Yeah,
the director. And the other thing is that perhaps, and that's a different reading of it, but perhaps Atim thinks that Nasara is actually worse off alive than he is dead.
Yeah, perhaps because he's has become a sort of a pathetic character.
Yeah. God has abandoned him. He can't get children.
His wife doesn't really love him.
No, not at all.
And his voice is gone. His business is perhaps not. He is in hard competition with another baker.
He has no one to take over.
Yeah. So there's also you could easily make the case that he's perhaps worse off being alive than dead. But I do think that the movie is trying to say that Nasara has not done enough to erase past, but he's done enough to be spared.
Yeah,
he was not evil or mean towards Atim. He was good towards him, but that doesn't change the fact that and that's why he's walking off with his grandfather instead. In the end, he does not go back. At least from what we see with Nasara, to become a baker.
No, that would be a surprising sequel. The thing I really need here that I'm not getting is they never discuss it.
No.
He doesn't confront him. Nasara doesn't show any grief or,
No, that's true.
So there's a lot here that's not, that doesn't come to fruition. There's a lot of this film could have made that would have been really interesting.
You're right. There isn't either a redemption in a way like that he sort of takes accountability is maybe what I'm trying to say, right? He doesn't do that in any way, or apologizes for what he's done. I think, what do you think about the fact that they chose to not have a voice? Do you have any thoughts on it? I mean, maybe for me, I think it is a way to say that he's also a victim of the war in his own way, right? Like it is a way to sort of show that even, he also has a history. He also suffered as a consequence of this, and perhaps some of the actions that he took during the war were, actions taken because he's forced to it. And I think one interesting part is we never know the circumstances of why Atim's father was killed. No. Do we know that he was just randomly killed, or was it, or was Atim's father in the army or a part of a militia, or we don't know. We don't know the backstory of any of this.
No, one thing that I'm thinking of now is, as you're speaking, considering that, I read up on these other peace accords and peace processes in Africa and the way they did it differently. In Chad, there wasn't a, something you had to fulfill to qualify for amnesty. It was just an amnesty if you disarm and keep the peace. So it might also be a critique of that
way of
doing it, because
there's no accountability.
There's no accountability. He can just become a baker. He can just continue living his life, and at him not forgiving him but not forgetting it might actually be kind of a sentence on the amnesty. I'm reaching, but
I know.
But there is something. He must have meant something with it.
Yeah. I will say one thing that I find really interesting is because, my wife is from Nigeria and I watch quite a bit of Nigerian movies. And they often come off as very much perhaps overacted from a more Western perspective. It's a lot of shouting. It's a lot of, loud, out there performances that seem sometimes even maybe a little unnatural to us when we view it. This, for watching an African movie very close to Nigerian, I know it's different cultures completely and completely different. Also the fact that he has his education in France and maybe has some influence from another film scene. But I find it really interesting how understated everything is in this movie. Like, as we say, there's so little dialogue. They're very calm performances. Do they carry it all the time? No, they don't really. Yeah, and that's perhaps my biggest issue with the movie is this reliance on something that I don't think maybe the actors. While I don't think they're bad, I don't think that the actors are bad, but they're not as good as this movie demands for it to be lifted. It's a very slow movie. Not a lot is happening. It sounds like a lot of things are happening here, but it is.
It's all happening in one shed.
It's happening in one shed in his little compound. Yeah. It is not when we say he lashes out or something. It is literally like shrugging his shoulders or moving back quickly. It's not very expressive either. No, I think that's where it
fails to deliver what it needs. Yeah, I agree.
And it, to me personally, I think it comes off as a little bit boring. And I think that's the downfall of it, unfortunately, because I think there is. The themes are there. The idea of I think when we read these synopses, when we decided to pick it, it sounded really interesting. This idea of a revenge story, but also this idea of somebody. How do you confront when suddenly the criminals are just out of the blue pardoned and given amnesty? There are some really interesting themes here. It just doesn't, for me, it doesn't deliver completely. Do I think it's a terrible movie? No. Do I think it's great? No. Do I think it's good? Only maybe, I think, because I don't think I would watch it again. I thought it was interesting to see a movie from this part of the world. I thought it was an overall interesting themes, but the movie itself perhaps didn't deliver for me.
What I really need to do is to watch one or two more of this director's films to see if, just to kind of understand, because there might be something here that we're just not getting. So it would be interesting to see a few of his other features to kind of see if this is his style or if it's something specifically he did for dry season. But isolated on this, I agree completely. It falls short. It has potential, definitely, and it's not like I regret watching it. But
no. And I will also say, there's obviously some skill here in camera work. It's quite nice. The shooting, the sound, the mood of it is quite nice. As I said, I really like seeing this part of the world that is just so out of our little tunnel vision, especially also perhaps seeing, when we hear about Africa, we either hear sub-Saharan Africa or we think North Africa, and this is sort of that middle Sahara region, and also one of the countries with, at the crossroads, which also is between Islam and Christianity, and which is also the origins of a lot of the conflicts in the country. I think that's interesting to see. If you had to rate it, what would you give it?
I'd give it a 5.
A 5?
Yeah.
I think I'm at you at a 5, to be honest. I think it falls pretty much in the middle.
Center, yeah.
I actually expect you to be a little harder, but I think I'm there. It's just, it's not enough to lift it above, but I also think it's not bad.
It's average.
It's very average in a way. Yeah, I think in not a bad or a particularly good way. It is a very average movie.
Yeah.
I would say so we are quite a bit probably below the ratings that we went through in the beginning. Maybe I have a little hard time seeing what other people saw, but you did too. And I think this is the first one where we are maybe a little bit off compared to
the consensus. Yeah, because it had 6.9 on IMDb,
which I think is where I would say that is a pretty good score for a movie. That's the one where you say, oh, that's a movie I would really want to watch, right?
3.6 on Letterboxd.
Pretty good. And 100 on the tomato meter.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not from that many, but still.
Yeah.
You know,
they loved it. They also watched it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it, and that's why we have the foreign film frequency ratings.
Yeah, exactly. Which is the only one you should ever listen to and ever trust.
Yes. I think we've established that much already.
Yeah, that we are the final say on any
on any Chadian movie.
On any Chadian movie. Anyway, so we end on an average score of 5. Dead in the middle. All right. Now we, of course, have to find the next movie we're going to watch. So we already have the next one. It is the 1988 movie Mortu, Nega from Guinea-Bissau. And after that, we have Holy Spider from Iran. And then we have to find a third one. So, as always, we will spin our random country spinner and then see if we can find a movie to watch.
Spin the wheel.
And China, a big one. All right, let's see. I have a long list of movies here. But one that I actually acquired relatively recently on DVD, although you haven't watched it yet, is the 1994 historical drama To Live. It's sort of like a historical epic of, transition from the pre-revolutionary China into the Cultural Revolution. And does that sound like something?
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's watch that. So To Live from 1994.
I look forward to live.
You look forward to live. Perfect. All right. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Foreign Film Frequency. Please like, rate, and review us wherever you're listening. Please share us far and wide.